Lord, I come before you tonight with a heart that has known the weight of betrayal, the sting of false words, and the cold silence of those who once called themselves friends. I come not with demands, not with anger burning in my chest, but with hands open and a spirit trembling between the memory of pain and the whisper of your promise. I come because there is nowhere else to go. No other refuge when the world has turned its face away and left you standing alone in the ruins of what you thought was solid ground. There was a day, Lord, when I believed I understood how life would unfold. I believed that goodness would be recognized, that truth would speak for itself, that integrity would be its own defense. I walked through my days with a quiet confidence, not in myself, but in the order of things, in the justice I thought lived naturally in the hearts of people. I was naive, perhaps. I was unprepared for the moment when everything I had built, everything I had believed about the world, would crumble like sand between my fingers. It started with whispers. Isn't that how it always begins? Not with thunder or lightning, but with soft voices behind closed doors, with glances exchanged across rooms, with laughter that stops the moment you enter. I felt it before I understood it, that shift in the air, that subtle drawing back, as if I had become something dangerous, something to be avoided. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself that good people, honest people, would see through whatever shadows were being cast. But the whispers grew louder and the shadows grew longer, until the day came when the accusations were spoken aloud, when lies were dressed up as truth, and when I stood accused of things I had never done, never even imagined. Lord, you saw me in that moment. You saw me when they rose against me, when faces I had trusted turned cold and distant, when voices that had once spoken kindly now spat venom disguised as concern. You saw me when I tried to defend myself, when my words fell on ears that had already decided, when truth itself seemed powerless against the tide of deception. I stood there watching the wicked prosper, watching those who had spread the lies move forward with smiles and confidence, while I was pushed to the margins, marked and labelled, a cautionary tale in a story I didn't recognize. I almost lost my faith in that season, Lord. I confess it now, here in the quiet where only you can hear. I almost believed that cruelty was stronger than kindness, that deception was more powerful than truth, that the wicked would always win because they were willing to do what the righteous could not. I watched them succeed. I watched them celebrated while I sat alone in rooms that had once been filled with friendship. I watched them prosper while I counted the cost of my integrity, wondering if I had been a fool to believe that standing firm would matter. But then, in the depths of that darkness, I remembered your words. I remembered the ancient promise spoken through the psalmist, the one I had read 1,000 times without truly understanding. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. I clung to those words, Lord, like a drowning man clings to driftwood. I didn't understand them yet, not fully, but they became my lifeline when everything else had been stripped away. When the noise of accusation was loudest, I whispered them. When the loneliness pressed in like a weight on my chest, I repeated them. When I lay awake at night replaying every moment, every word, every look, trying to understand how it had all gone so wrong, I let those words wash over me like water over stones worn smooth by time. The injustice of it all nearly consumed me. I replayed the scenes in my mind until they became like wounds I couldn't stop touching, couldn't stop reopening. I saw their faces, heard their laughter echoing through empty streets when I walked home alone. I remembered the meetings where my name was mentioned with disdain, where my character was dismantled piece by people who had never bothered to ask my side of the story. I thought of the doors that closed, the opportunities that vanished, the future I had imagined that dissolved like morning mist. There were nights, Lord, when I prayed through tears that wouldn't stop falling, when I asked you why, when I begged you to make them see, to make them understand, to vindicate me in their eyes. I wanted you to strike with thunder, to reveal the truth so dramatically that no one could deny it, to turn the tables so completely that those who had accused me would be forced to bow their heads in shame and apology. I wanted spectacle. I wanted immediate justice. I wanted the satisfaction of seeing them proven wrong while the memory of their cruelty was still fresh. But you, Lord, you had other plans. You answered my prayers, but not in the way I expected. Not with thunder, but with silence. Not with spectacle, but with stillness. In the space where human voices had once filled my life, I began to hear your voice. In the emptiness left by false friends, I found your presence. In the darkness of betrayal, I discovered light I had never noticed before, because I had been too distracted by the brightness of human approval. You taught me something in that silence, something I had never learned in all my years of walking with you. You taught me that the absence of human justice does not mean the absence of divine attention. You taught me that vindication is not always loud and immediate, that sometimes your justice works slowly, invisibly, like roots growing deep beneath the ground where no eye can see. You taught me that being planted by you means being rooted in something far more permanent than reputation, far more solid than public opinion, far more real than the fickle favor of people who change their minds like the wind changes direction. The chaff may blow in the wind, may rise high and seem to fly, may appear for a moment to be triumphant and free, but the wind that lifts it is the same wind that scatters it, that carries it away to be forgotten, to be lost, to return to the dust from which it came. And I realized, Lord, in the depths of my grief and confusion, that those who rose against me were like chaff. They had their moment, they had their season of seeming success, but they had no roots, they had no foundation. They were dependent on the wind of circumstance, on the changing tides of popular opinion, on the fragile structures of deception that must constantly be maintained and defended. But a tree, Lord, a tree planted by streams of water, a tree rooted in your presence, does not fear the wind. The wind may bend its branches, may strip its leaves, may test its strength, but the roots hold firm. The roots drink from waters that never run dry. The roots reach down into soil enriched by your faithfulness, nourished by your promises, sustained by your unchanging character. And in time, in your perfect time, that tree bears fruit. Not because it strives or struggles, not because it fights to prove itself, but simply because it remains rooted, remains connected to the source of life, remains faithful to what it was created to be. I began to understand, slowly at first, and then with growing clarity, that you were not absent in my suffering. You were not distant in my pain. You were planting me. Every tear I shed was watering roots I couldn't see. Every night I spent in prayer was deepening my connection to living water. Every moment I chose to trust you instead of defending myself was strengthening my foundation. Every time I resisted the temptation to become bitter, to seek revenge, to return evil for evil, I was allowing you to transform me from something fragile and shallow into something deep and enduring. They rose against me. Yes, they spoke lies and prospered in their deception. They celebrated while I mourned. They advanced while I retreated. But Lord, you were doing something in me that they could not see, something they would not understand, even if they witnessed it. You were removing me from the shallow soil of human approval and planting me in the deep soil of divine purpose. You were teaching me to draw my life not from the applause of crowds, but from the quiet affirmation of your presence. You were showing me that being forsaken by people is sometimes the path to being found by you in ways I had never experienced before. I learned to meditate on your word day and night, not as a discipline or a duty, but as a lifeline, as a conversation with the only one who truly knew me, who saw not just what I had done or failed to do, but who I was becoming. I learned that your law is not a burden, but a gift, not a restriction, but a revelation of how life works at its deepest level, how righteousness and peace and joy are not the rewards for good behavior, but the natural fruit of a life rooted in your truth. The storms came, Lord. Oh, how they came. There were moments when the betrayal felt fresh all over again, when I would see them from a distance, laughing and thriving, and the wound would reopen. There were seasons when the loneliness pressed in so heavily, I thought I might break under the weight of it. There were days when I questioned whether standing firm had been worth the cost, whether integrity mattered if it left you isolated and misunderstood. But in each storm, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt my roots holding. I felt the strength of being planted, not by human hands, but by divine design. The wind that once would have uprooted me now only caused me to reach deeper, to grip tighter to the soil of your faithfulness. The rains that once would have washed me away now became the very waters that nourished my growth. I was no longer at the mercy of circumstances or dependent on the approval of people. I was rooted in something eternal, something unchanging, something that neither betrayal nor injustice could touch. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, I began to change, not in dramatic ways that others could see, but in the hidden places of the heart where real transformation happens. I found that I could think of those who had hurt me without the burning anger that once consumed me. I discovered a capacity to forgive that I had never possessed before, not because I was strong, but because your grace in me was stronger than my pain. I learned to pray for them, genuinely and without bitterness, asking you to bless them even as I acknowledged the harm they had caused. This was not weakness, Lord. This was not surrender. This was the fruit of a tree that has drunk deeply from your streams of mercy. This was the evidence that you were accomplishing something in me far greater than vindicating me in their eyes. You were making me like Christ, who prayed for those who crucified him, who looked on his betrayers with compassion, who understood that the chaff does not know what it does not see its own emptiness, does not recognize the wind that carries it, is leading to its own destruction. I realized that my vindication was not about proving them wrong. It was about becoming the person you created me to be, regardless of their opinions or their actions. It was about standing firm when everything around me shifted, about remaining rooted when everything visible suggested that roots don't matter. It was about trusting that your justice operates on a timeline and a scale that human eyes cannot perceive, that what looks like defeat in one season may be revealed as victory in another, that what appears to be loss may actually be the removal of everything that was preventing my growth. The wicked rose for their moment, Lord, but I see now that moments pass, seasons change, the wind shifts. What seemed permanent was temporary, what appeared solid was vapor. They had their day in the sun, their season of seeming triumph, but it was built on sand, on lies, on the fragile ego that requires constant validation and can never rest, never be satisfied, never truly prosper because it has no root, no depth, no connection to anything real or lasting. But me, Lord, you planted me by streams of water. You placed me where the currents run deep and steady, where the supply never fails, where the nourishment flows from your eternal spring. And here, in this place of planting, I have found what all my striving could never produce. I have found peace that does not depend on circumstances. I have found joy that is not contingent on approval. I have found strength that is not my own, but yours, flowing through me, like water through roots, like sap through branches, like life through every fiber of my being. My leaves do not wither, Lord, not because I am strong, but because I am connected. Not because I am perfect, but because I am planted. Not because I have earned favor, but because you, in your infinite wisdom and unfathomable love, have chosen to give life to those who remain in you, who delight in your ways, who meditate on your truth not just with their minds, but with their whole being. And the fruit, Lord, the fruit is coming. I see it now in ways I couldn't before. Not the fruit of revenge or vindication in human terms, but the fruit of character refined by fire, of faith tested and proven genuine, of love that has learned to extend even to enemies, of wisdom that sees beyond the moment to the eternal. This is the prosperity the psalmist spoke of, not material success or public recognition, but the deep flourishing of a soul that has learned to drink from living water, that has been trained by trials to reach deeper, to hold firmer, to stand taller, not in pride, but in the quiet confidence of being rooted in truth. I forgive them now, Lord, truly and completely, not because they have asked for it or earned it, but because I understand that holding on to bitterness would be like poisoning my own roots, like cutting off my own access to the streams that give me life. I release them to your justice, which is far more perfect than anything I could devise, far more redemptive than my wounded heart could imagine. I pray for them, that they might find what I have found, that the wind might stop blowing them about, and they might discover the peace of being planted, the rest of being rooted, the joy of drawing life from you, rather than from the fickle favor of other chaff blown by the same empty wind. Lord, I thank you for the betrayal, strange as it sounds to say those words. I thank you for the false accusations, for the abandonment, for the lonely nights and the painful days. Not because the pain was good in itself, but because you used it to plant me deeper than I would have ever chosen to go. You used it to remove me from shallow soil where I would have remained small and vulnerable. You used it to teach me the difference between the temporary applause of people and the eternal approval of heaven. You used it to show me that being lifted by you is infinitely better than being celebrated by those who do not know you. The wicked rose against me for a moment, but you, Lord, have lifted me for eternity. They pushed me down, but you pushed me deeper. They meant to destroy me, but you used their actions to establish me. They sought to scatter me like chaff, but instead, they became the wind that drove my roots deeper into your soil, that caused me to grip tighter to your truth, that taught me to find my life in you alone. I stand now, Lord, not as someone seeking revenge, but as a tree that has weathered the storm. I stand as evidence that your word is true, that those who delight in your law and meditate on it day and night will be blessed, will prosper, not according to the world's definition, but according to yours. I stand as a testament to the fact that human judgment is not final, that public opinion is not ultimate, that the verdict of crowds is not eternal. The chaff has blown away, or it will blow away, or it is blowing away even now, scattered by the very wind that once seemed to carry it so high. But the tree remains, the roots hold, the streams continue to flow, and in your perfect time, in your perfect way, the fruit will come, and it will be sweet, not because I earned it, but because you, the master gardener, knew exactly where to plant me, exactly how to prune me, exactly how to water me, exactly how to grow me into something that could bear the weight of your glory. Lord, let this prayer be a testimony to every soul that has known betrayal, that has felt the sting of false accusation, that has watched the wicked prosper while righteousness seemed to cost everything. Let them know that you see. Let them know that you remember. Let them know that being planted by you is worth more than being praised by the world. Let them know that roots matter more than reputation, that depth matters more than display, that divine vindication is surer than human justice, even though it operates on a different timeline and according to different measures. The wicked rose for a moment, like chaff lifted by wind, visible and seemingly triumphant. But the wind cannot sustain what has no weight, no substance, no root. It must eventually fall, must eventually scatter, must eventually return to the dust from which it came, forgotten and lost and dissolved into the nothingness it always was beneath the surface. But those planted by you, Lord, those rooted in your presence, those who draw their life from your streams, they stand forever. Storms may come and go. Seasons may change. People may betray and accuse and abandon, but the tree remains because the roots are held by something greater than circumstance. someone more faithful than the most loyal friend, a foundation more solid than the most secure reputation. I am that tree, Lord, planted by you when I thought I was being uprooted, established by you when I thought I was being destroyed, lifted by you when I thought I was being buried. And I will remain here. In this place you have chosen for me, drinking from these streams you have provided, bearing the fruit you have ordained, testifying with my very existence that your ways are higher than our ways, your thoughts higher than our thoughts, your justice more perfect than anything human hands could accomplish. The wicked rose, yes, but they rose only to fall. I was planted to stand. They were chaff blown by wind. I am a tree rooted in rivers. They had their moment. I have eternity. They sought to end me. You used them to establish me. And for this, for all of this, I worship you. I thank you. I surrender myself again to the mysterious wisdom of your planting, knowing that whatever comes, however long the winter, however fierce the storm, I am held by roots that reach deeper than betrayal, stronger than lies, more enduring than any scheme of wickedness. Let the wind blow, let the chaff scatter. I remain planted, rooted, held by streams that never fail, by a gardener who never abandons what he has planted, by a love that transforms even the deepest pain into the richest soil for growth. The wicked rose against me, but you, Lord, lifted me higher than they could imagine, deeper than they could see, into a place where their words cannot reach, their actions cannot touch, their judgments cannot define. And here, in this place of planting, I have found what I was always looking for, but never knew how to name until you taught me through fire and tears and the long, dark night of the soul that finally gave way to the morning light of your faithful presence. I am planted, I am rooted, I remain, and the streams flow on, forever and ever, world without end.